Dear students, welcome to my classroom of research methodology in history. Today I am giving you some ideas on linguistics and history. It's something related to the post-modernist concepts of decode the language, deconstruct the language, and also how we can use language to influence others. So this is something where we are playing with language to change history, to change the minds of the people. That what Derrida wants to state it through his grammatology, like how language can be a powerful medium to shook the world, to change the minds of the people, to transform the society. And also here I can mention what Gramsci once stated, according to whom that we talk cultural hegemony, and that hegemony is something which can be brought with language, that how we carry the legacy of a particular language that also makes us crippled and we become dependent on that language and the culture which is related to that language. If I talk about the legacy of the colonial masters which we are still carrying, then you will be able to understand that why we are having these courses in that particular language which is other than our mother tongue. So with this note, I would like to give you some theoretical expressions or perceptions related to linguistics. So if I talk on linguistics, then first I would like to mention about historical linguistics and then about linguistic theory. So there are various segments in my lecture. So initially I will start with these two segments and gradually I will continue. Historical linguistics, the study of how languages change over time, subsumes both the general study of language change and the history of specific languages and language families. The intellectual spectrum thus defined bridges part of the gap between linguistic theory and the areas traditionally known as philology. Linguistic theory, the core of the modern field of linguistics, seeks to characterize the linguistic knowledge that normal human beings acquire in the course of mastering their native language between the ages of 1 to 5. So here I am talking about our cognitive behavior and our adaptation skill of language. Studied as an internalized formal system, language is a source of insight into a wide range of human pursuits and abilities, some of them traditionally approached through the humanities, others through the social sciences, and others through the behavioral and natural sciences. The major divisions of linguistic theory are syntax, the study of sentence structure, phonology, the study of sounds and sound systems, morphology, the study of word structure, and semantics, the study of meaning. I would like to discuss about the important subfields of linguistics that which I have mentioned just now. So now I would like to give you a more broader picture of that means the definition of all these. Like if I start with phonetics, what does phonetics mean? The study of how speech sounds are produced and perceived. And what is phonology? The study of sound patterns and changes. Morphology, the study of word structure. Syntax, the study of sentence structure. Semantics, the study of linguistic meaning. Pragmatics, the study of how language is used in context. Historical linguistics, the study of language change. Sociolinguistics, the study of the relation between language and society. Computational linguistics, the study of how computers can process human language. psycholinguistics, the study of how humans acquire and use language. Now I would like to give you an idea about language relationships. The most visible phase of historical linguistics is the study of language relationships. It has been revitalized in the last few decades by a wealth of new linguistic, historical, anthropological and genetic evidence, innovative methods of classification, and a better understanding of how languages disperse and change. New surprising relationships are being proposed, and the internal affiliations of already established families are being reassessed. Binary tree models have been challenged by flatter bush or rake models that eliminate some formerly assumed subgroupings in favor of convergence between daughter languages, and the question of the family's homeland, date and dispersal has been reopened. So I'm trying to give you an idea about the scientific construction of the languages, that where we are giving importance on the lineage, like that how that particular language emerge or evolve, like how here we are trying to find out the ethnographical roots, or like their anthropological existence, through which we could be able to stress the grammar or the sentence construction of a particular language, or the scientific definition of a particular language. Indo-Europeanists are continuing to debate two principal models of population spread. So here I would like to tell you something related to the historical existence of the languages, or historical linguistics. The emphasis here is on the farming model, which assumes expansion from Anatolia over a relatively long time span, implying an early date of 7000 to 6500 BCE for the proto-language, and a more rapid expansion by pastoralists from the Pontic Caspian steppes beginning around 4500 to 4000 BCE. So these are some concepts which would definitely help you to understand like how people they migrate from one place to another in the ancient times, and how they mix with each other, how they exchanged their views, their ideas, and how they get what I can say, like get married to the communities, and also like they not only it help them to have their families, but also it helps with regard to the formation of a new language, where both the father and mother they are contributing, and the child who is born is having a new legacy. That means, you know, the amalgamation or fusion of the languages for the development of a new language. So here I can give you some examples like that, how we can make a relationship between the languages, or we can trace the relationship between the languages. Not make, how we can trace the relationship or the situate the relationship between the languages. See, in English we have father, in Latin we call it pater, and in Sanskrit we call it pita or Peter, how it is written in English. So in English what we call full, in Latin what we call plenas, and in Sanskrit what we call purna or purnas. So in English what we call for, in Latin what we call per, and in Sanskrit what we call pari. So here we find like that how these languages they have some sort of interconnection between each other. So now I would like to tell you something about the study of language structure. That at the beginning of the 20th century, attention shifted to the fact that not only language change but language structures as well is systematic and governed by regular rules and principles. The attention of the world's linguists turned more and more to the study of grammar. In the technical sense of the term, the organization of the sound system of a language and the internal structure of its words and sentences. By the 1920s, the program of structural linguistics, inspired in large part of the ideas of the Swiss linguist Ferdinand de Saussure, was developing sophisticated methods of grammatical analysis. This period also saw an intensified scholarly study of languages that had never been written down. It had by then become commonplace, for example, for an American linguist to spend several years working on the intricacies of the grammars of Chippewa, Ojibwa, Apache, Mohawk, and some other indigenous language of North America. So it's quite fascinating or interesting to find out that how we can find the roots of the language in the tribes or in the groups which are the part of our civilization from the beginning. So now it's time to give you an idea about language use, studies of meaning, that why we are using the language. So what are the socio-cultural implications of the same? There is also long tradition in the study of what it means to say that a word or sentence means a particular thing and how these meanings are conveyed when we communicate with each other. Two popular ideas about what meanings are go back to the ancient Greeks. One is that meanings are mental representations of some sort. Another is that the meaning of an expression is purely a function of how it is used. So when we are talking about the various expressions, all are the part of our psychological existence or our psychological or our mental repercussions. Both ideas have launched research programs that are active today. They have been joined by a third approach, building on work by philosophers such as Gottlob Frege and Bertrand Russell, which applies formal methods derived from logic and attempts to equate the meaning of an expression with reference and the conditions under which it might be judged to be true or false. So when we are experiencing something and which we are trying to portray through words, that is something where we can also apply theory to understand that what is in our mind, that whether it is in the subconscious level or what we are saying, that is also a part of the truth what we are experiencing. So here we find a fine layer between the surreal and the real world, that what we are telling perhaps is not the true picture what we are experiencing or what we are feeling within. So that is what is the theory by Bertrand Russell, that where he wants to decode the various expressions of language where we are playing with words, and that is also a part of postmodernist concepts where Derrida is trying to mean the same through his grammatology. Then it's also important to understand that what is the social side of language. Because we are the social animals. When we are communicating, we are interacting with each other, then how we are trying to portray ourselves and what is the social connotation behind it. In the past 50 years, there has been increasing attention to the social side of language as well as the mental. The subfield of sociolinguistics has come of age in part as a consequence of post-World War II social movements. The national liberation movements active in third world countries after the war posed the question of what would be their official language or languages after independence, a pressing question since almost all of them are multilingual. So here we find the impression that language is something which can be termed as political along with its social and cultural identities. How and why does language change? So it's something like that. Here we are also trying to situate language in the arena of history or social sciences. There are many different routes to language change. Changes can originate in language learning or through language contact, social differentiation, and natural process in usage. So when we talk about language learning, what's that? Language is transformed as it is transmitted from one generation to the next. Each individual must recreate a grammar and lexicon based on input received from parents, other siblings, and other members of the speech community, which I have already mentioned, that when the members of the communities, they get married to each other, and how their children, they are following their legacy with some new innovation. So that is called language learning. What is language contact? Migration, conquest, and trade bring speakers of one language into contact with speakers of another language. Some individuals will become fully bilingual as children, while others learn a second language more or less well as adults. So here we find like how history plays an important role behind the shaping up of linguistics or the linguistics theory. I can give you one example. When the British colonizers, they came to our country, they had no idea about our culture and also about our language. So they learned our language so that they would be able to communicate with the people from our country. So how they learned our language, how they developed our language, and how they also contributed for the grammar of our language, like that, to make it, I'm talking about the mother tongues. In my case, it would be Bengali, like that, how they contributed to a great extent for the scientific construction of our mother tongue. That is very much important. The missionaries of Sri Rampur, how they tried, I'm talking about the Christian missionaries of Sri Rampur, how they tried to develop the Bangla language scientifically, and wrote, one of them whose name was Halhead, he wrote the first Bengali grammar in English. Then we have social differentiation. Social groups adopt distinctive norms of dress, adornment, gesture, and so forth. Language is part of the package. Linguistic distinctiveness can be achieved through vocabulary, slang or jargon, pronunciation, usually via exaggeration of some variants already available in the environment, morphological processes, syntactic constructions, and so on. Natural processes in usage. Rapid or causal speech naturally produces processes such as assimilation, dissimilation, syncope, and apocope. Through repetition, particular cases may become conventionalized and therefore produced even in slower or more careful speech. So here we are trying to talk about something which is theoretical, or what I can say, scientific explanations of the language development, that where through the ages the external variables are very much important to make the language productive or useful and to make it a part of our tradition. So I would like to tell you something about the analogy with evolution via natural selection. So these are various fields through which we can make the study of linguistics more multidisciplinary. That as I am trying to find out the relationship between history and linguistics, where historical linguistics is playing a very important role, linguistics can be a part of science, or what I can say, can be a part of anthropology, can be a part of psychology, and many more. So if I would like to start with the analogy with evolution via natural selection, then I must quote Darwin. Darwin himself, in developing the concept of evolution of species via natural selection, made an analogy to the evolution of languages. For the analogy to hold, we need a pool of individuals with variable traits, a process of replication, creating new individuals whose traits depend on those of their parents, and set of environmental processes that result in differential success in replication of different traits. So here we are talking about, like, that is something how we can carry the legacy of a particular language, that while carrying this particular legacy, there are various components that, like language interaction, like how different languages are creating one language which is completely, what I can say, different from those languages like that which are the creators of that particular language, and definitely some similarities would be there, but it is not only about the words like which we are carrying through the ages. It is about the emotions where humans are also constructing, they are changing the norms or the codes of language. So that is very much interesting, and that is also related to the Darwin's theory of evolution, that where he gave emphasis on the survival of the fittest. So here I would like to talk about the various kinds of linguistics. First is applied linguistics. What is applied linguistics? Applied linguistics is a branch of linguistics that is involved in the identification, investigation, and providing solutions for real-life issues relating to language. It is an interdisciplinary field, drawing knowledge from different academic fields like psychology, sociology, anthropology. That what I have just mentioned, that linguistics is something where we can have a multidisciplinary approach. What is sociolinguistics? I have already mentioned about sociolinguistics and also about computational linguistics, and now it's time to tell you something about comparative linguistics. Comparative linguistics is one of the sought after branches of linguistics that is involved in the study of identifying similar and dissimilar properties between different languages of a common origin. And now history comes in our discussion, that when we talk on archaeology and linguistics, both investigate the past of human populations. So I would like to explain it in a more elaborate manner, that they offer an opportunity to reach the past of mankind thousands of years before the present day, and to obtain information on human groups of a particular period and region, their forms of livelihood, societal structure, beliefs, and intergroup relations. While linguistics and archaeology both have multiple methodologies and research materials, some fundamental differences can be discerned between them already from the outset. Whereas a linguist studies mental and portable cultural heritage, the archaeological material is spatial and has a particular location. Linguistics studies cultural concepts and a human world view that is related to the physical world through a process of cultural conceptualization, whereas archaeology investigates practical and often neglected sides of human life, material remains, and waste. So here we find some kind of a philosophical and what I can say some kind of scientific discussion where we can make history and linguistics together, and we can make their presence common, and we can try to find out a connection between linguistics and history. So the relationship between archaeology and linguistics is very much important for the students to understand the correlation between history and linguistics. So if I would like to conclude, there are certain questions in my mind that which I would like to mention. Why does language change? Why can we speak to and understand our parents but have trouble reading Shakespeare? Why is Chaucer's English of the 14th century so different from modern English of the late 20th century that the two are essentially different languages? Why are Americans and English one people divided by a common language? And how can the language of Chaucer and modern English or modern British and American English still are called the same language? Here history plays an important role. First, in the heyday of traditional worth in the 19th century, linguistic theory was historical comparative only. The 20th century has seen a radical shift in perspective so that modern historical linguistics is often assessed according to the extent to which it incorporates insights from synchronically based linguistic theories and potentially provides a testing ground for them. Such theories may not, however, have a great deal to say about currently lively areas like the interaction of variation and change or the related influence of language contact. Second, there is increasing interest in the data and analysis of historical linguistics from cognate disciplines, notably archaeology and genetics. I have mentioned archaeology. Such cross-fertilization has led to the proposal of new models and methods and has raised new methodological problems for historical linguistics. And with all these notes, I would like to end, but with one relevant question that will definitely help my students to think about the relationship between history and linguistics. And the question is why we are having this course in the language which is other than our mother tongue. Thank you.